Well, hi, Tatiana. Thanks so much for talking to me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
I'm very much enjoying the book. They sent chapter two, so it was good to
Oh, nice.
get to read it. And I know you talked a little bit about this at the panel, but can you talk a little bit about how like difficult it was getting back into these characters after so long? I know you said Cosima was the most difficult, maybe too, like what was the easiest one to get back into?
Allison's weirdly the easiest one to get into. I'm not sure why, what that says about me as a person now. But yeah, she was definitely easy to access. Sarah's always kind of there, and yeah, but it was really fun to get to explore these new characters like Blythe and Vivi. Even though we worked with Vivi a little bit last year, but it's fun to play like these new roles and see where they kind of what new characterizations I can bring to them or mannerisms, even if it's just vocal.
Right, right. And can you talk kind of about how your I guess your process changes because I know you don't have props, but do you sort of still find yourself like physically, I guess, inhabiting them, or is it really just your voice?
No, it does feel physical. I mean, Sarah like hurt my back because I was so kind of bent over the microphone. Like she just really requires me to be slouchy.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, there's definitely like physical things that pop up, postures, and even just the way that this is or whatever. It's yeah, it definitely does.
Does it? And I apologize if you hear my dog; she's howling.
No, my dog was barking too before.
Yeah. Is it difficult though not having somebody to like act against? Because I mean, you're not even, watching yourself back, I guess, which before you would have done, and you don't have that either.
Yeah, I mean, I think with audio, like with any audiobooks or anything I've done, it really just relies on your imagination to take you. And that's in itself like a very creative space to play in, even though it isn't necessarily back and forth. It's like you're sort of generating your own thing. And I think knowing like that Evelyn and Jordan and Christian were part of it, I can already feel their um, I know them really well. I know those characters really well. I know the dynamics. So those um those connections are like there already,
Yeah.
even if we're not doing it in person.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. So you two did, or not two, four, didn't interact at all. Like you didn't do some of it over, I don't know, Zoom maybe.
Nothing. This is the first time I see them in years.
That's great. I guess I have to ask: has there been any discussion of doing anything video wise or any kind of reunion other than I know you did like the script reading, but has there been any other discussion and would you be open to that?
We haven't really talked about that stuff. I mean, I'd be open to it. I'm also really happy with like what has happened so far in terms of the story, and I do
Yeah.
feel that it's always nice to leave things in a place where people still like it, and they're not just like, all right, another thing. It's nice to like
Right.
step away and just let things be what they are.
Right.
But I do think there's such like fertile ground in terms of like places that this show could go. Cartoons or whatever. I know there's comic books. Like there's so many mediums where it would really soar, I think.
Right. Were you surprised to find out that they were going to kind of reveal the clones to everybody?
It felt, yeah, I mean, it felt like it had to happen. It was another like way of kind of similarly to when people discovered that they're clones for the first time, their world sort of explodes. So now that they're comfortable in knowing who they are, to have the world explode again makes sense. Like it's sort of this, it plays with the idea of privacy and again, like ownership over your body or your story or your identity, which is all stuff that we'd always been kind of exploring.
Yeah, I found it really interesting, and I won't give it away, but the character who kind of was like, I would have wanted to, maybe have found things out in a different way. We'll just say it that way. I thought that that was
Yeah.
really, really interesting. So can you talk about maybe the challenges in playing clones at different ages? I mean, you also have, you have Charlotte, you have Vivi, who's a little different, but can you kind of talk about that? And do you do anything? I mean, obviously you do different things with your voice, I guess, every time, but do you consciously do something different to make them seem different in that respect?
Yeah, I feel like it's like knowledge somehow, like in their like the way that Charlotte sort of doesn't hasn't experienced everything, or not that they've all experienced everything, but she's at the beginning of a big experience, whereas the rest of them have gone through stuff together and sort of have a bit more grounding because of that, and that she's sort of like it's the feeling of like when I first discovered that feminism was a thing when I was like early 20s, and I was like, wait, what? And I felt like I had all of this. Suddenly I felt so riled up with like, but with no way of channeling it. So it was like all of this feeling and all of this new information that felt like so resonant with me, but I didn't quite know how to embody it yet. So I think that's where it sits differently for the two different age groups.
Right, right.
You know,
And can you talk a little bit about Rachel's character development and kind of what it's been like to humanize her a bit more, maybe make her a bit more sympathetic?
well, I think Rachel's been like dragged off of her pedestal as we saw during the series, but she also, yeah, it's great. Her character, I think, had the most to lose in so many ways, because she was holding the tightest to what she had and thought she was so separate from these women. And now to feel her uh, longing to be part of them and having something to offer that is actually beneficial to them, that isn't necessarily money, but something she knows, a power that she used to have or that she has, I think is a really interesting thing. This person who's like totally fallen, to be able to contribute again and and to learn through that sharing is a cool thing for her character.
Okay. Can you talk about the process of sort of creating the new personalities? Like, did they come to you and say, okay, we have this character, this character, this character in the book? Or do you kind of already have ideas of different voices in your head? Because obviously you have a lot of them.
Yeah, no, it was totally based off of what I read. So I would read it and go, and they obviously had like direction in terms of, oh, we're curious about this, or a Southern accent for this, or something,
Right.
or this might be this kind of vocal performance. But they're very much open to what I'm gonna throw at them, and then it becomes like a dialogue, and we figure it out, and we sort of hone in on who that person is.
Right. And I'm trying to think of the way to get this out of my brain and say it right. But how do you like is there something that you do to make I guess so many? Like I know as an actor that's kind of your job, but I mean you there's a lot. How do you kind of what do you think of when you do to say this one's has to be different? And how do you keep them all straight for that matter?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like getting specific about a couple things. So like getting really like specific about where their mouth sits, or whether their sound comes out of the nose, or
Mhm.
if there's a tightness to the throat, or they're pitched lower. So if I can hold on to that thing and then play around with that, allow myself to just express, but with that restriction, that's sort of what it is. Or a freedom, this person is so loud, uh vocally loud, and like says things in commands, so that's where I play from, but then I allow them to, what's it like when that commanding person feels vulnerable? Do they push harder? Do they command harder, or do they actually pull back? There's just fun stuff to play with in there.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to talk a second about the fan base. What was it, or specifically about merchandise? I'm just curious. What was it like when you found out like there were Funko Pops? Like that's just got to be the weirdest. Although maybe a little creepy, although they don't really per se look like you. But what
My
was
head
kind of
is that big. Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I love action figures. I've always loved that. I've always like, I don't know that I could say I hadn't dreamed of that. You know what I mean? Like it's
yeah.
such a cool thing, and It's nuts that people want to buy them. Like, it's just a
Yeah.
great, it's super fun. It's super fun to see a character that I was part of creating hold a place, on somebody's shelf or whatever, on a sticker or whatever. It's cool. It's very
Yeah.
cool.
Looking back, if you could give yourself like one piece of advice or something that you would tell yourself maybe that first day when you started, if you thought about like what would you want to know that maybe would have helped you through the difficult times of it, I guess.
Um, I feel like there's no right way to do this. And I think, as a young actor, I was very worried about like being fired or whatever, losing the job or not being good enough or not getting, praise or whatever. So it made, I think, makes you afraid and made my choices a little afraid. But I feel like the lifelong struggle for me as an actor is just to continue to find freedom in a very high pressure,
Right.
people watching you situation, so that I have full access to my creativity and I'm not like, is this good? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I would say.
Okay, and then lastly, I just wanted to know, can you tease a little bit about like what people are going to get for the second episode?
Oh, here's the
Vivi,
fun
go into.
tease. This one, I'm gonna tease this.
Okay.
This I really enjoyed. This was Rachel and Kasima are doing this like press tour thing, and they get put on the spot in terms of a question they're asked on TV, and the dynamic between them becomes very interesting.
Okay, cool. Very cool. All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank
I
you.
look forward to reading the rest. All right.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye bye.